Let's talk about California's water, specifically how two billionaires came to control a massive portion of it. It's a wild story of secret deals, incredible political power, and what happens when a resource we all need to survive ends up in the hands of a very powerful few.
To really get a handle on the scale of what we're talking about, I want to start with a comparison that is, well, it's pretty mind-boggling.
Okay, first, just picture the city of Los Angeles. That's almost 4 million people.
Now try to imagine the sheer volume of water it takes to keep a city like that going for a year. Every shower, every glass of water, every single toilet flush. It adds up to a staggering amount.
Okay, hold that number in your head. Now, let's contrast all of that with just two people.
Yep, you heard that right. Two people, Stuart and Linda Resnick, use more water every year than the entire population of Los Angeles combined. So, how on earth is that even possible? Well, that's exactly what we're here to break down.
To understand how they pulled this off, you first have to understand who they are, and more importantly, what their playbook is for building their massive agricultural empire. So, meet Stuart and Linda Resnick. And let's be clear, these are not your typical farmers. With a combined net worth of about $13 billion, they run a global empire built on brands you definitely recognize. And their land holdings in California? They're so vast. We're talking 4 times the size of San Francisco. You could literally drive for hours and still be on their property.
Linda Resnick is widely seen as a marketing genius. With slogans like this, she turned Fiji water into a global luxury brand. This, despite all the controversy over draining local aquifers in Fiji. It kind of revealed a pattern, turning a natural resource into a gold mine.
And if you want to understand their strategy, just look at their pistachio takeover. When the Iranian Revolution cut off pistachio imports, the Resnicks saw a billion-dollar opening. They jumped in, completely dominated the market, and then, and this is the key part, they used their money to lobby Washington to keep sanctions on Iran, effectively boxing out their main competitor. You got to remember this playbook. It's crucial for what comes next.
Okay, so now we get to the absolute heart of our story. A secret deal made in a Monterey hotel that would change California's water landscape forever.
But first, a super quick lesson on California water law, because it's a little weird. Basically, it's first in time, first in right. If you got here early, you have senior rights, and you're golden. You're the last to get your water cut off during a drought. Everyone else, they get junior rights, which are shaky, unreliable, and guess what kind of rights the Resnicks had for their super thirsty crops? Yep, junior rights, which put their whole empire at risk every time it didn't rain.
So, in 1994, Stuart Resnick got a group together. State water officials, other big landowners, they all meet behind closed doors. No press, no public scrutiny. They were about to rewrite the rules of the game.
And here is the jaw-dropping deal they struck. The Resnicks and their allies agreed to give up their unreliable junior rights. In exchange, the state gave them a 58% controlling stake in something called the Kern Water Bank. Now, this wasn't some small reservoir. It's a massive 500 billion-gallon underground aquifer that was built with $74 million of taxpayer money. So they traded something they might have lost in a drought anyway for permanent control of a public asset. It's been called an insane offer for a reason.
So what happened after this secret deal went through? What were the real, long-term consequences for the state of California?
Well, they basically created a perfect cycle of influence. With control of the water bank, they could sell that once public water back to the state for a huge profit during droughts. Then, they'd use that money to make massive political donations to the very politicians who could have challenged the deal. They even funded university studies to help control the narrative around water management. It's a pretty slick system.
And this chart just puts the whole situation into stark relief. Agriculture in California, led by giants like the Resnicks, uses 80% of the state's developed water. 80%. And yet it only contributes about 2% to the state's GDP. Looking at that, it really makes you wonder about the state's water priorities.
This all came to a head pretty recently. As devastating wildfires were burning across the state, public anger really started to focus on the Resnicks, with people accusing them of hoarding water and making a terrible situation even worse. So let's look at both sides of this. The critics argue that having a monopoly on such a huge public resource makes the entire state more vulnerable. The Resnicks counter that their business uses less than 1% of the state's total water. And while many were blaming them for a lack of water to fight the fires, officials said that LA's water tanks were actually full. The problem, they argued, wasn't supply, but the city's aging infrastructure.
Ultimately, when you zoom out, this story is much bigger than just one couple or one deal. It forces all of us to ask some really fundamental questions about our most vital resources.
I mean, this is really the core of it, right? Is water just another commodity to be traded for profit? Or is it something different, a public trust, maybe even a human right that should never be owned by anyone?
And this just begs the question about the system itself. For 3 decades, a deal that transferred a massive public asset into private hands with zero public input has pretty much stood unchallenged. How does that happen?
We saw that whole cycle of influence. This story is just a stark reminder of the power of money in politics. And it raises a tough question. Are our essential public resources really safe from private interests?
And so this is where we're left. The water laws that allowed this to happen were written for a totally different era. In a future of increasing drought and a changing climate, is a system of first come, first served still going to work? Or is it time for a radical rethinking of who really owns our water?